Today, we are having this. For us, it's a virtual forum, and it will be part of series of information sharing that we want to understand, have information, and also be able to contribute in our ideas, our thoughts, our recommendation on the National Energy Transition Framework, and also, importantly, is how we are able to participate in the implementation. For us, this is something that we have to collectively contribute towards. And today, we would have our resource person from the Ministry of Energy who would throw more light on our energy transition framework. And then we would take in specific comment questions, and then we will be able to proceed accordingly. Let me share that when I'm done, we will leave the introduction of stakeholders to the tail end because more others will be joining. And then Kasa initiative in Ghana started a process in June this year and had some forum already with selected CSOs on this National Energy Transition Framework. So I would allow Mr. Jonathan Coker to share what happened then, and then the aftermath of that. This is all part of process to ensure that CSOs and other stakeholders are adequately informed about the provisions of the energy transition framework so that they can also support in the implementation and the rollout. So that said, I would want to invite Mr. Jonathan Coker to give us a brief on the forum held in June and the aftermath. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chief, for that nice introduction. Since I don't have a slide to share, I'll rather share my face. So, good morning, colleagues. Hey.
Good morning.
Aha, good morning. Yes. This is supposed to be an interaction and not a lecture. So, please be responsive. Yes, so my name is Jonathan, and I coordinate the CSO's platform on SDG 13 and the coordinator for Kasa Initiative Ghana, a platform for civil society organizations working in the area of natural resource governance and environment. And this energy transition framework issue, when it was developed, we took interest in knowing what exactly is the content of this framework. And in pursuance of that, we organized a forum in June where the Ministry of Energy was present to help some selected CSOs have an increased understanding of the framework and chart a path, or with the knowledge we gain, chart a path as to how we can support an implementation, have a good understanding of the document to help us chart this path as we roll out our various projects and put aspects of this framework in those projects for implementation. So Dr. Segbeji was very benevolent to come to that meeting and share more information. But we saw the need to expand the conversation beyond the small number of people who were part of that engagement. So that is why we thought it wise to support this initiative to further deepen understanding of stakeholders and CSOs, especially in this energy transition framework discussion, and how it is linked to our climate change interventions we are implementing. What is the link between this framework and our emission reduction effort as a country that we civil society organizations are supposed to be contributing to? The other bigger climate change framework being the nationally determined contribution framework that we submitted as the UNFCCC has a strong link with this energy transition framework. And Kasa has taken the lead as a non-state actor to develop a CSO or a non-state actor's specific data collection instruments that will help us also to contribute to the national reporting process. It's a process that we have undertaken, but of course, it has a strong link with the energy transition framework. So we see them as one. But it's a process, as I said, the national data collection system and the reporting system, it's somehow devoid of what CSOs or non-state actors can add to the report in terms of what is being collected from the national agencies and authorities. But for us as CSOs to also have a strong voice, make our relevance in the sector very strong, we decided to chart this path to create a space for ourselves in the reporting process. So it is important for us to be part of this discussion to really shape our thoughts and our plans in order to feature strongly in the national level discourse. So I don't want to take much of our time this morning. This is part of series of other climate change engagements that will be happening. So please be on the watch out. To be announcing them as the time goes by for us to be well connected to these national processes. I'm done. Thanks so much, Jay. Over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jonathan. Can you share? Somebody asked if other CSOs want to be part of the process. How can they be part of the process quickly before we move on?
All right, so you can quickly get in touch with me at the Secretariat here at Kokomlemle. The various national climate change processes that we want to contribute to as CSOs, we have a plan in place, but this will not be the forum to share this immediately. So you can connect with me and we'll share these processes, then you can connect and we do it together. Thank you.
Okay, so a request is being made to share your email address and contact in the chat box so that others can ask for specific information. So please do that, Mr. Jonathan Kasa.
Thank you so much. Quickly, I'll do that. Thank you.
So now we would want to have the core of the issues and a presentation from our resource person, Dr. Robert Saboji would take over, introduce himself, and then your sharing of screen is activated. So you can go ahead and share your screen, Dr. Saboji, and then give us your presentation. After his presentation, we'll take in comment, questions, and then and we will also have others also make input. Thank you. Over.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. I hope we are good now.
Very good. It is clear.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm coming to have a brief presentation on the Ghana's energy transition pathway. As the introduction said, this is a repeat of John's presentation for everybody to get the Ghana energy transition pathway, and then we can dialogue and assist in a way that will be able to support the implementation of the Ghana energy transition framework. So I start with the simple question. We said, what is energy transition? And according to the International Renewable Energy Agency, energy transition is reaching global net zero, moving away from fossil-based fuel by half century. And we know that this came about through the Paris Agreement on climate action to reduce our carbon emissions to get to pre-industrial levels. And as this Paris Agreement thing was going, we also came in with the SDGs, which are supposed to be to end by 2030. And SDG 7 is also to provide affordable and reliable energy for all in a sustainable manner. Sustainable means it should be clean and it should be modern. So combining the SDGs and the Paris Agreement came in with the energy transition. But then energy transition, as you know, for developing countries is quite expensive. So we seek support for developed countries so that we don't repeat what developed countries use fossil fuel in developing. But based on all the promises that were made in Glasgow at COP26, we realized that the promises have not been met, where we were promised $10 billion a year to move in. Over the 10 years, only $10 billion were committed. So it means that the money coming in was inadequate. So if African countries have to do energy transition, then they have to make sure we do it in an economical, sustainable manner, in a way that our economies will not suffer. So in Ghana, energy transition, we look at the various energy systems we have, the fuels we have, and we define energy transition that there will be some emissions, there will be mitigation actions, we will change technology, but then we have to make sure that the emissions which will be there will be mitigated to give us a net zero. So they ask, what are our emission sources? And let's quantify them. We look at in the 1990s, and we see that the agricultural sector was the highest emitting sector of 76%. Fast forward, when we discovered oil and gas, we realized that the energy sector has overtaken the agricultural sector. And as of now, it's even more than what you see. So the energy sector, it comprises of, so many sectors, but mostly the use of the fossil fuel is coming from the energy sector for electricity generation and for vehicular movement. 70% of our emissions are CO2, and then we have the methane, which is also emitted due to agricultural activities in Ghana. So we zoom in into the energy sector, and as I said, you see that the transport sector, due to the use of diesel and petrol, is leading the chart with a lot of the emission. And then we come to the oil and gas, and then the energy industries. You see, the energy industries, because Ghana uses gas and sometimes heavy fuel oil to generate electricity, we have high emissions in the electricity generation sector. For the oil and gas, you see that there are some two peaks here. If not for the policy of no flaring, this will be our normal peaking level of emissions, which would have been very, very bad for us in terms of carbon contribution to the global system. So these peaks came in about because during those years, we allowed some flaring to happen because according to the policy, if the integrity of the reservoirs is at stake, then you can allow some amount of flaring. So clearly, you can see that the energy sector, especially the transport sector, the energy, electricity production sector, are all major contributors of greenhouse gas emissions in Ghana, and we have to decarbonize. Then we come to the global picture, and then we said, okay, globally, how are we faring? We looked at it and realized that Africa is only less than, almost 4% of our emissions, of the global emissions. And if you take specifically our carbon emission, we are about 0.5 tons per capita, as compared to China, 7.3 tons per capita, Germany, 9.4 tons per capita, South Korea, and even Kenya is even lower than us. Angola, they do flare, so they are at 1 ton per capita. So on the global scale, we Africans are even we are even more net zero than any other continent. So why are we considering energy transition? Why are we decarbonizing? So I always say this thing that we are in the boat and there is a hole in the boat, and we didn't make that hole in the boat. But then if you sit unconcerned and say that whoever made that hole should plug the hole and the boat starts sinking, we all sink. So we all have to put in our effort to make sure that we plug that hole. We have seen the devastating flood and recently, all came out from climate change. We didn't contribute much to climate change, but then the weather pattern, the rainfall pattern, and all that have changed, and it is affecting us. And we can't predict, precisely when the rains are coming in more and when they are coming in less. We all have to come together to make sure that we combat this climate change. Else, whoever polluted is not only going to suffer, we are all going to suffer the consequences. So, in view of this, we set up, there's a committee set up by the Honorable Minister in 2021 to make sure that we come up with an energy transition framework to guide our country towards clean energy economy. And we were guided by the following, that we should identify pathway for the country to transition towards carbon neutrality and to harness the opportunity for a fair and equitable energy transition so that the country relies on the carbon intensive economies, but industries do not, suffer in our plan. We also have to evaluate the impact of the energy transition on the economy in terms of infrastructure, job, revenue, social development. We also were tasked to develop a long-term policy and medium-term policy targets for achieving carbon neutrality. But most of all, we should estimate the cost at which our energy transition is going to affect the economy, or how much we need total in this energy transition. So what we did first was to look at the benefits and adverse effects. We look at the benefits and realize that energy transition will diversify our fuel energy mix, which means we are going to have solar, wind, hydro, and all the other nuclear and all the other clean energy. So if there's a problem with one fuel mix, then other fuel mix will be able to supply enough electricity. As of today, we are hearing Gridco talking about short of gas supply. But if the fuel mix is fully diversified, you realize that other fuels will ramp up, and then you will not have problem with challenges of fuel supply. Now, you know that for Europe, they are so interconnected that even if they have these challenges, they are able to get a lot of power from other grid connections or other countries. But in Africa, our West African power pool is not fully integrated. It's just a few countries which are quite so, and Ghana rather even sits on a comfortable zone to even supply. So if we have challenge, it is very difficult for people to come to our aid. Now we look at the advantage also is that we'll be able to commercialize our renewable energy in sources through carbon credits. We'll be able to improve our air quality, where now we'll be able to breathe a carbon-free air. This in the long term will also reduce our cost of electricity as we have diversified our energy mix to more cleaner and renewable energy system. And the new technologies will provide job opportunities to various people. So we look at this, and then these are some of the things that we need to maximize to appear in our energy transition. And then we have to minimize the adverse effect in terms of threats to energy security. Because if you don't transition well and you want to transition overnight, you are going to have problems with energy security. And this is what South Africa is experiencing, where they decided to shut their coal mines immediately, or didn't take care of the coal mines because they thought they were transitioning and going clean. And now they're having challenges, and then the coal mines also can't work. And so they are in serious power crisis due to, not targeting the roadmap very well. So you have to be wary of these adverse impacts. We've also had reduced fossil fuel funding because most fossil fuel funding companies are going green. We as African countries are very new in terms of the oil and gas sector. So we still have resources there. And now that we are not getting funding support to such projects, it will lead to potential stranded assets where we have put FPSOs, pipelines, and infrastructures there, and we will not be able to utilize them because we will not be able to get funding, and also we will not be able to utilize the products. Another thing is job losses, where we have a relatively youthful regime in terms of the oil and gas sector. And so, what is the job replacement for this oil and gas, sector? All those people at the filling station dispensing fuel, what is the next thing? So we have to also look at how to minimize the job losses and also the potential revenue loss where we get our royalties from the petroleum mining communities, and we are all going to use this royalty. So these were some of the guiding principles that we have to follow to make sure that the energy transition that we are preparing for our country will be fair, just, and equitable. We also look at the geopolitics of the world, where we see that some countries rely solely on fossil fuel, like Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, UAE. So they resist the shift to, non-fossil fuel economy. Rather, they are looking at technologies that can make fossil fuel clean without emitting the carbon into the atmosphere. So we look at these geopolitics, we look at the effects of Russia-Ukraine conflicts. Where first gas was not clean, and then during this period, gas became a transition fuel. Then we see some countries turning to coal to go and mine their coal, and then nuclear became a green energy in the taxonomy. So we see that energy security is key before any other thing else when we look at the geopolitical challenges, and we should consider that very well before drawing a roadmap or having a pathway. The financial challenges, energy transition, we see we have a huge investment need. And it will be very difficult to access cheap funding unless for other clean energy infrastructure like solar. Even then, you have to go for some heavy loans or some agreements which you may not be comfortable with. So financial challenges may also hinder smooth energy transition. We also look at the technologies. The low availability factor of modern renewable energy, such as wind and solar, is one of the issues. That the solar is not there all the time and the wind is not blowing all the time. Sometimes the wind sleeps. And so having these systems will require a serious upgrade and serious energy analysis to be able to really, really rely on this modern renewable energy technologies. If you want to go into battery storage for them, currently the inefficiency of the battery technology is high, leading to it being less economical because it's so expensive that if you want to put 100 megawatts on the battery storage, the power which will come out now, you cannot pay for it. It will be too expensive. So we should look at an improved battery storage technology, which will make the modern renewables cheaper. We are looking at the heavy transport, that is the BRVs, the ships, the airplanes. Now we are hearing of aviation fuel, clean aviation fuel, which will be coming. It is not still there. So how do we plan with such heavy equipment, the bulk vehicle transport, and then the ships and the airplanes? Then we look at the advancements in the nuclear sector, where the promotion of small modular reactors are coming in, but you realize that most countries have not constructed their small modular reactors, and some are still on the pilot stage. Especially China has constructed its first pilot one, and then Russia also constructed it's pilot one. Other countries are still developing, hoping to connect theirs to the grid by 2028. So these are some of the technological challenges you have when you are going in a transition. Now, the issues of critical minerals also is there. The issue of critical
Hello,
so
Doc.
yes,
Okay,
I'm here.
you went off a little, so just
Yeah.
what you said before now.
No, I didn't say anything. So the issue of critical minerals. So the the critical minerals are also key in our energy transition, and we need to make sure that we harness our critical minerals for the growth of our technologies, especially electric vehicles. And the plan is to make sure that these minerals are not exported raw, but they are processed. And also, it's going to create jobs. You look at the job creation aspect of the introduction of the new technologies such as hydrogen production, nuclear power, carbon capture use and storage, renewable energy, and electric mobility. So we did some desktop analysis and regional stakeholder consultations and focus and then we did consultations with focus groups and nationwide, and then pick some information from all the stakeholder engagements we did, put it in our modeling, use data, and then we came up with a model. And then after that, had a validation workshop, and then we came out with the final documentation. So we first also looked at the world energy mix, and we realized that the most world energy mix we have are natural gas, nuclear, coal, and renewable in the form of hydro. But because it is an energy transition and we are moving from carbon, we are moving away from carbon, coal could not be considered. So we look at the renewables, gas, which is considered as clean now, and then nuclear, which is also considered as clean. So, I said, gas was considered as a transition fuel based on its usage. Some will call it a destination fuel because you fix it with carbon capture technology and it becomes clean. And then there comes hydrogen. So we looked at all this global analysis, and then we started looking also at our resources that we have. And then we are abound with a lot of wind areas, hydro potentials, biomass, and then solar. When you look at the hydros, we have exhausted all our large hydros. So the small hydros that we have, even if you combine all of them, they may not even reach 2,000 megawatts. Even then, we have to do some assessment again because of the aggressive nature of this Galamsey issue, which is ongoing. That if they still, some of those ones are still viable to give us the measurement we did previously. So what did we do? We did some analysis and we took our GDP, did a projections, did the population projections to 72 million by 2070. Electricity access. Next year, we'll be able to hit universal access, but by 2030, we should be hitting 99.8%, which will mean that we'll be meeting our SDG 30, SDG 7, which is to provide energy to all, but that is by 2030. So this analysis were also considered, And then some people say, how is your GDP growth? Because these are GDP growth from 79 billion dollars, and now we are estimating at $863 billion. And some saying this is our economic crisis and all that. So we look at projections and realize that yes, between 1999 to 2001, there was a dip in GDP, and then we had a rise, and then you get a dip, you have a rise. So the dip and the rise, based on our history from 1987, has been, I would say, consistent, but on the average, it has been on the rise. If we take the average, so the projections that we made on the GDP growth is a realistic one. So first, we look at no policy intervention. That is business as usual, where we are not going to do um, energy transition. We are just going to provide energy for our demand. And we realize that our emissions will be hitting 200 million tons of CO2. 200 million tons of CO2 will be in our emissions. And what this will provide is that it will give us low investment costs. Low investment costs because you are not going to get money from anywhere to do any technology change. But the disadvantage is that it will not diversify our energy mix because when you see majority of the energy is gas. This is gas based, and then there's no guarantee of constant availability of natural gas. So right now, if we have not hit any new gas wells, then what will be the problem? The thing is that we will be importing a lot of LNG, and that means that the world market will be at the mercy of the world market price volatility. So this is one of it, and then the electricity demand for e-mobility will not be met because as the electric vehicles come in, you can't stop people from bringing electric vehicles. So you go back having heavy electricity shortage when everybody plugs in their car. There will be no carbon mitigation, and this is a risk to our trade because in the near or even in the near future or in the immediate future, prices of items are going to be based on their carbon footprint. And if your carbon footprint for production, there's low energy security due to non-diversified of our fuel mix because if you look at the fuel mix, it is basically gas, and then that means that we rely heavily on imported gas, and that means that we'll be at the mercy of price volatility. Then the next thing is that importation of electric vehicles, you cannot stop them from coming in, and if everybody is charging their vehicle, then means that we'll have challenge with electricity because when they are all charging, you will not be able to reach their peak demand. Now, for there's no carbon mitigation measures also, and that will not make us have access to the green trade because prices of products have commenced being priced with carbon footprints. And if your carbon footprint for producing an item is high, the price on the international market is high. And that means that all our cocoa, chocolates, and all that will be pegged at prices which will not be competitive on the international market. So that is the no policy intervention scenario. So we look at another scenario which you have to put in all the energy systems based on what the world energy mix is looking at the immediate future. And then we had and also consider e-mobility and the electricity economy that will be going into it. And then we should realize that so we had the gas, we have the renewables, which is the green, and then we have the nuclear energy, which is the blue. And then realize that when we do this is going to cause our carbon footprint to go zero, and that is the ash line. And we are comparing it to the no policy intervention. And the advantage that this will provide is that it is going to diversify our energy mix due to the various energy mix we have. We have nuclear, we have renewables, we have gas, and so we will have high energy security. We also have access to the green trade market because of the reduction in the carbon emissions, which will move to net zero. There will be lower cost to electricity generation as well, which I'll show later as the presentation goes on. And based on the 8,000 megawatts of more than 8,000 megawatts of electricity, that is 80 gigawatts of electricity we should be producing, we will be able to meet the full switch for electricity demand, which we anticipate in the electricity economy. The associated risk is the high investment cost because currently carbon capture is a bit expensive because it is a new tech, and then nuclear is also expensive. It has a high upfront cost, but then a very low levelized cost based on its operations for 60 to 80 years. And introducing carbon capture to is quite expensive. And we need to develop human resource to be able to manage this, to be able to man these technologies. So these are some of the this in the C1 scenario where nuclear and gas are acting as base load. Okay, so then we come to C2 scenario. Please, can everybody hear me?
Yes, go
Okay,
ahead, but
all right.
just please speak
Okay.
up. I think the volume is down for others, so just speak up for us. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So then the next
We can hear you, Doc, please.
okay. The other scenario where we have gas as base load, because we look at a scenario where we are saying that we are trying to reduce costs to the upfront cost. So we say, okay, let's take out nuclear. Let's see what the scenario will look like. Looking at it, we were able also to meet our net zero emission by 2070. However, the advantage is that yes, we will meet our electricity access, and then we will be able to even meet the green trade. But the disadvantage is that you see there's a lot of gas, which means that the energy mix is not diversified. And the introduction of carbon capture has become more expensive because more of the gas to power we are generating will have carbon capture, and carbon capture technology is expensive. And then we don't also have a guaranteed supply of natural gas. As at now, you already know that we are even shorting natural gas. So if you are supposed to heavily rely on LNG importation, that is also another thing. We can't control the prices of electricity. Hence, you cannot say this scenario will even give us the cheapest cost of electricity. So this will provide us a high cost of electricity. Then we look at a scenario where we said, oh, due to the cost of carbon capture technology, let's eliminate carbon capture technology and then no nuclear and see what will happen. When we did that, we realized that even the carbon emissions will be higher than even the business as usual or the no policy intervention, because we are meeting our future electricity need based on switch to e-economy. It will give us a low investment cost as compared to the rest, but the disadvantage is that also there will be no diversification of fuel mix. We will be heavily dependent on LNG, and then there's no mitigation against greenhouse gas, so we will not have access to the agreement. So for this scenario, it was a no-go zone because we were not able to even meet the net zero. Then we compare the scenarios in terms of cost. When we look at the cost, the no policy intervention gave us the smallest cost, but then we know that emissions were still high, giving us emissions about 200 million tons of CO2. We look at the second and third. So these are the two which give us the net zero. That is the nuclear and gas as base load and gas as base load. And then when we look at their generation cost, which will move to the cost of electricity to end user, we will realize that the nuclear and gas as base load gave us a scenario where the cost of electricity is less than 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And the one with gas as base load is about 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Actually, currently, we are paying more than I would say more than even 10 or even 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So the second and the third um, looks okay for our current situation, but we have to go for the best, the one which will give us the electricity and then provide us more diversified energy mix. And that is the one which is the T1 scenario, because the first and the last scenario all did not reach net zero. So our energy mix is going to look like this. That is, over the years, we are going to have the nuclear, the natural gas, and then the renewable. But if you compare it to the generation mix, which I want to explain very here for everybody to understand clearly, this is quite important because of certain perceptions of energy mix that the public has out there. Now, so this is our generation. The yellow is the hydro. And as I said, we have exhausted all our large hydros. So you see that the hydro currently remains the same throughout the period. And the green, which is thick in the capacity, has become very thin in the generation because it is solar and wind. And these energy sources are not available 24/7. So their generation truncates when their resources are not there. The sun will go down in the evening, the wind will sleep. So until we have a battery system which is cheap, if you try the model with the put battery, the system becomes so expensive that the modeling is not able to pick it up. So this project, I would say, is subject to review based on availability of cheap battery technologies, where we'll be able to confidently push them on the grid to be able to provide reliable, or let me say, firm power. So we see that by 2030, nuclear begins, and then with natural gas or gas to power peaking. And then at this point, by 2040, you see that nuclear is expanding with a lot of installed capacity, because during this time, carbon capture would have been introduced. And as carbon capture would have been introduced, the technology is expensive. So it makes nuclear very, 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 very cheap. So nuclear expands. And then some of the thermal plants, the guys will be retiring. And then from this, you'll be building new thermal plant. That is from 2055 going, you'll be building new thermal plant solely with carbon capture, technologies which have evolved over the years, with nuclear taking a big chunk of the electricity being generated. So when we look at the both scenarios, we realize that due to the introduction of energy efficiency technologies, energy intensity will have reduced, because This is the energy intensity, which is the business as usual. And due to the introduction of 5-star, 4-star appliances, no more 1-star energy, we use less electricity for higher productivity. And this will lead to a reduction in our carbon emissions. So you see that from now, the emissions will be increasing and then it will peak at 2045 and then it will start coasting down to up to 2030. While the business as usual would have just been going up to 200 million tons of CO2. So then now let's look at the economics of what we are doing. So we look at the cost and we see that it will require $76 billion in the in the electricity transmission and distribution sector. We need to invest that amount of money in the transmission and distribution lines alone to make sure that our lines are robust enough to take in a lot of intermittent REs as well as the large power to evacuate. We will need $266 billion to build new power plants to be able to meet the demand. Our gas infrastructure network needs to be improved with $40.5 billion. And this includes the building of natural gas regasification terminals and pipelines as well. The transport sector will see that people will be switching to electric vehicles, so they have to build electric charging stations, and it is estimated that this will cost $12.3 billion. Then this is a residential cost. So this cost also, I would say it is not reliant or it's not government cost. It is the cost for me and you, where you go to the market and then there is no 1-star or 2-star fridge, but it's only 4-star, 5-star. And we banned certain equipment from coming in because of the energy intensity. So this 148.2 billion is for residential costs in terms of water heating, cooling, and all the gadgets that we need. Somebody asks, why do we have to cost it? We have to cost it because sometimes government comes in to do intervention. For example, when government came in to do the refrigerating rebate scheme, it has to know how much it was going to cost. So this cost is already there. Then it's okay. I can get this money to do it. So let people bring their old refrigerators, destroy it, give them their coupon, and let them go to any store to go and buy a refrigerator they like by topping up. So we have to do we have to quantify the whole thing, including how much industry has to pay to be able to get efficient refrigeration and ACs and motors. So in totality, we will need about $562 billion to be able to do our energy transition by 2070. So what is the impact of this? That's the economic impact. It is projected that electricity will be about 16% of our GDP, raking in $140 billion. And oil and gas will be bringing in about 35 billion, dollars, including gas of $1.3 billion. Petroleum assets will have low risk because looking at the span of our energy transition, it is more than 40, it's a 40-year period. 40-year period, as at that time, I have retired. All those people who are working in the oil and gas sector would have retired. So nobody is going to lose their job. There will be transitioning. So by the time the new people are flowing in, they would have, gone through transition into new jobs. Then the downstream sector would have also transited from CNG to electric vehicle charging. So all those who have been dispensing fuel will now be dispensing CNG or electric vehicle charging. The funding of fossil fuel, funding of renewable energy will also be able to have access to funding. And the creation, we have to create some traction to be able to make sure that we fund renewable energy and clean energy technologies. So I think there was a okay. So we make sure that the agricultural land was not impacted much because 0.71% of arable land will be used in our energy transition in the form of building power lines and electricity or energy sector infrastructure. It's also realized that there will be access to electricity nationwide, which will provide productive use of energy in terms of small businesses like cold stores, salons, dressmaking. And one of the economic impacts is that it's going to provide over 1.4 million direct jobs and a lot of indirect jobs. One of the social impacts in terms of gender is that it's going to save 30 million hours of time that mostly women and children use to go and look for firewood. That is by the introduction of clean cooking using efficient stoves, electric stoves, or bioethanol stoves. These hours will be used by mostly women and children to do other productive things like learning or doing their homeworks and improving their academics. Over 48,000 people who would have died from heart premature death by the inhalation of indoor smoke and also fumes from our vehicle would have also been saved if we go through our energy transition. Environmental impact. Yes, one is that we are going to clean the atmosphere in that will give us clean air to breathe, which is one of the main aim. There will be some reduction in the flora and fauna, that is some plants due to the construction of power systems, and there will be some noise also, which will be based on these systems. Will change the landscape because if you want to construct a power plant, you may have to level the land and all that. So these are some of the environmental impacts. You also have to make sure that for nuclear power, we will be able to make plans for nuclear waste disposal also. And such the same as for the battery storage and the solar panels. We also have to make systems for it to make sure that we dispose them very well. Potential deforestation for the construction of wind farms will also may happen. Issues of migratory birds, and also so these are some environmental impacts which we should be able to find a way to mitigate as we also try to go through our energy transition. Now, the policies, I will not go through all the policies, but just a few. We had 4 major policies that we had to look at. And one is decarbonization. So under decarbonization, emitting industries will be required to undergo some tree plantation to offset their emission. We'll continue to use natural gas for industrial heating and electricity production. We will legislate and develop rules for carbon financing, and we will promote and encourage the use of electric vehicle. We will also promote the use of hydrogen fuel, and we will introduce and increase the share of nuclear in our energy mix. We will also phase out fossil fueled internally combustion engines, and maybe at that time we may have ethanol internally combustion engines or electric vehicles. will also increase our share of renewables, among others. So these are some of the decarbonization measures. For energy access and energy security, we also have to expedite the oil and gas exploration to make sure that we have enough money to do our energy transition. We encourage the use of LPG, and then we also have to encourage fossil fuel companies to invest in renewable energy technologies. As I said, we exploit the lithium and critical minerals to develop clean energy industries. And for charcoal production, we have to provide sustainable woodlots. That is a specific area which you farm trees and then harvest those trees to produce fuel in the form of biomass. And then we prioritize green energy to attract more investment since energy transition is quite expensive. For energy efficiency, we intensify the promotion of our energy efficiency, especially in industries where they should use modern equipment, and encourage them to use the best in class, that is 5-star and anything above. Also encourage the construction of efficient building where your air conditions are not leaking out and you are using a lot of natural sunlight. The policies towards achieving net zero in the cross-cutting issues is that we are going to decentralize energy transition implementation, where we will continue to work with districts and also introduce it in our academic calendar. Most of all, we mainstream gender in the implementation of the energy transition, and then encourage private sector to participate in the energy transition. So local content will also be key, because we don't want the importation of the technologies, but then the technologies must be manufactured here for us to be able to benefit the full cycle of it. So these are just a few of the policies in the four cross-cutting areas. So with the financial part, which I spoke earlier, most of the cost is going into building of power plants and the residential cost, which I say it is our cost. Residential cost is forming about 26% of the energy mix, and the share of the money, and then power generation is about 47%. Infrastructure in terms of charging station, distribution lines, I mean, is going to cost about 15% of the total cost, which I said it is $562 billion. This is how we intend to get resources for the money. GOG is the government of Ghana. So for the first 10 years, where we are looking at getting $2.9 billion, and then the multi-development banks, multilateral development banks, they were looking at having about $2.6 billion, which may come in the form of a loan or grants. Development partners will give us 0.7, which is also come in the form of loan and banks. And then we have the private investments, which is 2.1. So in totality, we are looking at GOG having direct from internally generated money, about 12% of our energy transition costs, whilst we'll be getting some money in the form of loan grants from the multilateral development banks, and then the development partners who always promise that will assist in our energy transition, some 11%. And the private investment, which is you and I and other industries, based on changing of equipment and infrastructure and all that, will be contributing about 35% of our energy transition. So what have we done so far? So based on energy transition, currently our energy mix has 3.1% renewable energy penetration. Basically, in terms of solar. But in totality, our renewable energy is around 35% due to the inclusion of large hydro in our Renewable Energy Act 1045. We have developed a renewable energy master plan. We have converted more than 95% of our fossil fuel, that is a heavy fuel oil plants, to use natural gas. We've developed a nuclear power program to be able to kickstart in our nuclear energy in the energy mix integration. We have a plan for LPG promotion, which we have started using the cylinder recirculation model with a target of hitting 50% renewable, 50% LPG penetration by 2030. We've been distributing 500,000 roof charcoal stoves to make sure that people don't frequently cut firewood to generate charcoal, but the small charcoal you have should be able to cook enough so that you don't cut down more trees. We've been replacing kerosene lanterns with solar lanterns under the solar lantern project, which we are doing from the Ministry of Energy. A lot of MPs and district assemblies and social organizations all have been applying for these solar lanterns at the Ministry of Energy. We've also converted our single cycle thermal plant to use combined cycle, which means the exhaust or the heat from the exhaust of the thermal plant is able used to also turn another system or turbine to also generate additional electricity. We have the zero flaring policy, which is still ongoing, and this also reduces our emission. The shift to e-mobility is also there because you see that the Ministry of Transport has come out with a new transport policy where there is e-mobility in there. But with e-mobility, you have to guarantee the supply of electricity. We have also established the Petroleum Hub Corporation, which is supposed to make sure that we refine our petrochemicals here, because we realize that some refineries worldwide are shutting down. And as they are shutting down, the challenge is that we import the final product. So if they shut down and we are not able to import the final product. If you are able, so if the petroleum products are refined here, we are able to get a finalized product, and this will guarantee supply of finished products. And these finished products.
Point of correction, a minute. It's like other people haven't muted their end. So if they can do that, it's interfering your presentation.
Yes, I realize that. But as the host, you can mute them.
Yes, Doug, please go on. We are working on it at the background. Please go on.
Okay. So so that is for the petroleum hub. So in the short to medium term, we have collaborated with Sustainable Energy for All, who has come out with an investor-friendly plan, which has been launched. And this is a plan which states various projects in there. And if you are going to get a lot of support from funding, we'll be able to reach the energy transition much earlier than what you anticipate in the framework. And this collaboration is supposed to promote partnership with international organizations to implement this specific project to accelerate our energy transition framework. And then we will also have international roadshows with international organizations to sell our energy transition plan to the world. So there's an energy transition implementation committee, which has been set up at the office of the president to drive this process to make sure that we are walking the talk and it is just not a document. Then there's also been collaboration with ECOWAS to partner Ghana the production of green hydrogen in the sub-region, and this process is also ongoing. Regulations on road transport for CNG has also completed, and we are preparing to commence the utilization of CNG as fuel substitute. There's a committee on e-mobility which also set up and it is operating, which include the Energy Commission, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Energy, PURC, and ECG to make sure that we put in the right infrastructure for the influx of electric vehicles. So in the medium to long term, as I said earlier, this is going to be our energy transition energy mix by 2070, where currently we will have about 30% renewable energy by 2030, with 10% being modern renewable, such as solar and wind, and gas being about 70% of our generation mix. But we have to further diversify our energy mix by the introduction of the first nuclear power plants into the energy mix by early 2030s. And then by the 2070, renewable energy will be about 20% in the installed capacity, gas being 34%, with nuclear being about 46% in our energy mix. So as I'm coming to the end, I want to show the whole framework that this is how we are going to decarbonize, that by 2030, we'll be looking at promoting the best in class of appliance. That is, we'll be putting more appliances on 3-star, 4-star, less than. We'll be trying to reduce the 1-star and 2-star. We'll be introducing the compressed natural gas fuel for vehicles, and then we would have achieved 10% RE in the energy mix. As we fast forward, by 2040, we start phasing out the fossil fuel ICE, and then we also phase out the liquid fuel electricity generators. And then by 2050, more than 70% of our vehicles will be electric vehicles, or will be using hydrogen. And then by 2070, by then more than 70% of all rural households will be using LPG, which means that urban households would have migrated to electric cooking, or 100% both electric cooking and LPG usage, and 20% of electricity generation will be coming from RE, with zero emissions from electricity generation. Would have mitigated about 180 million tons of CO2. But you could realize that at the end of 2070, the graph didn't go to zero. If it was only electricity, it would have gone to zero. But there are other economies in there. So as I said, ships and planes and heavy duty vehicles have not, their fuel have not yet come back. And so we don't want to make the assumption that it will come out by then. When it comes up, this plan, as I said, is subject to review. So it can be reviewed, and this ending point can further narrow. For residential, yes, you will still have a thick area in the residential. Some of us, charcoal will still be with us. We always want to use some charcoal to cook. Some people say charcoal jollof is nicer than normal gas jollof. Some say charcoal tilapia is nicer than gas grilled tilapia. So some of these things will account for it. But from the beginning, I said we have our net zero is emission minus mitigation is equal to net zero. So this part of the emission, the emissions which will be coming, can easily be negated by planting of trees or the introduction of other sinks to make it hit net zero. So in conclusion, I will say that our energy transition framework, which spans to 2070, guarantees the best supply of energy mix, and then will be reducing over 200 million tons of CO2. Will have access to the green trade market with renewable energy installed capacity of 21 gigawatts. Will achieve universal access next year with 99.8% being by 2020. Lower long-term cost of electricity generation, where we will reduce our electricity cost below 4.5 cents. Our future electricity will be 83 gigawatts in installed capacity, and we would have avoided 48,000 premature deaths. Women and children would have also saved productive hours, like 30 million, which would have used to be gathering firewood. And there will be more than 1.4 million jobs created due to the introduction of the new technologies. This is to achieve a just and equitable, transition with our economy not being affected. However, we are looking at financing it at a tune of $562 billion. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the very elaborate and detailed presentation. I have some questions and comments, all right, but I would also open the floor for specific questions and comments. Please, if you want to speak, you can raise your hand, and then we would identify you as such, and then make sure that you are given the floor to speak. Prof, the point is that I am looking at the amount required, almost 562 billion, and already economics and the economic situation in Ghana and Africa and beyond. Is this finance achievable? It is something that has been concern of many, especially also the other burden of over 148 billion as a residential cost, which constitutes about 26% of the cost. And won't this be a burden on citizens? These are my initial comment.
Okay, so I don't know whether I should take individuals' questions and then address them.
You can start with this, whereas others we are also picking the questions from the live feed and also from the chat box. So we'll be asking them as well. Thank you. Please go on.
So, yes, as I said from the beginning, energy transition is not cheap. It's going to be very expensive. And as I showed you, also that our GDP growth is consistent with our estimation. And that is why we didn't do an energy transition, which based on the world definition will end up by half century. Because we realize that by half century, if we are to do by half century, the economy will not be able to take it. So we realize that safely the economy will take it if we are able to do it by 2070. And we have also explained the various sources where we will get funding from. But when we look at the residential cost, it spans over, 40-year period. And 40-year period is a very long period. And when you go and you say you want to buy a refrigerator, there's 1 star, 2 star to 5 star. Most people will say 1 star is cheap, so I'm going to buy the 1 star. But then on the long term, it becomes expensive because you are paying a lot of electricity on it. And that will also require us to build more power plants to meet the demand, and that will affect energy intensity. So if we stop the use of 1, 2 star, and then you go into the stores and you see only 3 star and 4 star, but you need a refrigerator, so you have to buy 3 star and 4 star. Everybody adjusts to what you go and see, and everybody will understand that we are trying to do energy transition. We are going clean. We don't want to build more power plants which will use fossil fuel. So yes, it looks huge, but it's a 40-year plan, and industry and residential are all in there, which is costing about the 25%. You can see, but it is realistic provided the funding mechanism is followed, the multilateral development banks will be able to provide the funding support. It's not free. Yes, they will provide for our energy transition, and the development partners will also be able to provide their support.
Okay, thank you very much, Doug. I think I have seen some hands up, so I'll call in the order. Center for Youth and Child Crisis Intervention. Yes, can you make your submission or ask your question? Please unmute. Please unmute.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Mohammed Ibn Hassan of Center for Youth and Child Crisis Intervention. Doc, in one of your slides, I could see that you juxtaposed the benefits and the impact. Well, both are very critical from my own point of view. So, please, what would you recommend for Ghana as a country, taking into consideration the benefits and the impact? I'm asking this because definitely any change comes with problems. So if we are going to transition, as you have outlined all of these, what do you envisage Ghana as a country will likely fall in when we get to that end? And specifically, what will be the impact on the youth, children, and the vulnerable in our society? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, Doug. So before Doug, there's another question from live before you pick this one. I think it relates to this in terms of the impact. Is that now Ghana is getting more oil, and we're also having this plan. What would be the effect on our oil discoveries and the expected revenues? Yeah, so maybe I think it's also in yes. So can you throw on that?
Okay, so as from the beginning, I said our plan was tailored in such a way that we maximize the benefits and we reduce the impact. So if you look that at the end of the presentation, the energy mix is diversified. There's high renewable energy in there. Obviously, we are looking at clean air because of the reduction in carbon. And then the job opportunities which are going to come in based on the new technologies which you have introduced. So we have maximized the impact, the benefits. Now with the impact, because of the potential threat to energy security, you see that our energy transition is up 2070, which means that we are taking our time to introduce the technologies in and not shutting down existing technologies, and that will make sure that we will have problems. With the fossil fuel funding and the stranded assets, we look at that. We have established the Petroleum Hub Corporation. So the Petroleum Hub Corporation is to make sure that industries in terms of refinery and processing of petrochemicals are going to fill that enclave. So the oil and gas discoveries that we have will be sending our oil there for reprocessing and then for utilization in the country. So I think I would have addressed the oil and gas. So for the benefits for the youth or the impact on the youth, it's an over 40-year plan. So if you're in the oil and gas sector, if after 40 years you have not metamorphosed to match with the system, then that will be a trouble. Some of us like us or a little younger, 40 years time, we would have retired because you are more than 20 years old. So by then, you would have retired and you would have worked in the oil and gas. And by that time, there's a new phase which has come for the new youth who would have taken over, who have been trained in academics to be able to work with the new system. So I think our energy transition has really minimized the adverse effects and has maximized the benefits.
There are a couple of the areas of plastic waste and contributes to this. The other is a question also on issues.
Can you repeat the first? Can you repeat the question?
The first question from Fatih is: did you capture the areas of plastic waste and use and how the disposal and burning also affects your plan? Then one question is on carbon credits, and then whether those who are also engaged in mangrove restoration, tree planting, and forest conservation are also considered in your discussion.
Okay. So when we look at plastic and waste burning, this is an energy transition. We are looking at the energy sector. So Ministry of Sanitation, who have a way to handle the use of, plastics. So with the energy sector, we cannot go into waste management. That is for another sector. But this is energy transition. Now for the carbon credit, yes, carbon credit system is there, and as we see under the Paris Agreement Article 6, you can trade your carbon credit. And so there is a Environmental Protection Agency has a desk where you can go to.
Are you live? Okay.
Where you can go to get more feedback from on how to get your carbon credit. The Ministry of Finance also has a desk where you'll be able to get more assistance on how to trade your carbon credits.
Okay, Doug. There's a question online. It's asking that you showed a chart, if you can put that again, where you attributed the emissions from the various sectors. And the person is asking that from cooking and others, it seems that there is a lot of destruction of the green cover, where the wood is, which is or in place to sequester the carbon, are removed and also used for fuel wood. So the question is, did you do the double calculation? Because the releasing of the carbon is one side, and also cutting the wood is another. Another question which is close to this is that he said you mentioned about the fact that Ghanaians like cooking with charcoal and especially with fuel wood, and for smoking of fish and others, there is a special taste and preference for wood, and that is something that may not be easy for people to forego. And what are the plans within this framework to address transition of fuel wood and others? Thank you.
Okay. So for the cutting of wood and then burning it. Now, when you cut the wood, you have cut it. Instead of it storing carbon, it is no more storing carbon. Now, you have not released the carbon, but you have prevented carbon from being captured. If you are not emitting carbon from anywhere and you have cut that wood, it means the net effect is zero. But when you burn it, or when you burn it, then you have re-emitted the carbon into the atmosphere. So this was taken into consideration. So that is why you see that the energy sector has a high, carbon content. Now, when you look at the agricultural side, the wood they burn, it is not for cooking. They cut the wood and then burn and clear the whole area as deforestation and release this inside the atmosphere. So that is another way of emitting carbon into the atmosphere, but it is not for energy. It is just for clearing to create land for agriculture. Those who burn for charcoal emissions are also counted in a different way. Now, when we look at the plans for those who use wood for smoking and all that, that is why we say that we are going to establish a sustainable wood lot. So it is an area where you have planted trees, and those trees are used for fuel wood. So as you are cutting, then you are planting, and you are not going into a new forest. So if it is this area which has been earmarked for sustainable woodlot, that is where you catch it. So there'll be zones, there'll be areas, there'll be zones where there'll be earmarked for sustainable woodlot, where nobody now goes into the virgin forest or the forest reserve to go and cut wood. So that is how the sustainability of those charcoal production will be done.
Okay, Doug, let me read one question before we come again to the participants here. One question online is, let me just look at it again. The question is related to what do you envisage as the role of stakeholders, including CSOs and media, and does the ministry has any plans to, have broader incorporation if you have already identified their roles and how they can support, and you have a roadmap or a pathway of facilitating their role effectively? That's media, CSOs, academia, and others, ECT.
Okay. So the Ministry of Energy is there as a public institution and open up for any dialoguing, suggestions or assistance in achieving its mandate. I've made my office. I've made a lot of presentations nationwide to various CSOs, and whatever they can offer to the energy transition policy or framework is welcome. So I mean, here and now we receive letters on how various institutions and academia want to come in to be able to implement one thing or the other, and the ministry will direct to the appropriate quarters or appropriate institution or office to be able to make sure that this thing happen. So we are still an open public institutions. We cannot say we have we know it all. We are still open for, new directions from CSO, academia, and all public institutions on how we can go about our implementation of the energy transition framework.
Okay, thank you very much, Doug. Anyone with questions, we will want to use this last session for those questions, and then we can move to the closing remarks. So anyone with questions, just raise your hand, and then let me pick you up, and then you unmute, and then you can share your comment.
Hello, Chair. Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can ask a question.
All right, Doc. Thanks for the presentation. I know you have the energy transition framework implementation plan. Where are we in terms of implementation? Because I know it has already started. Did you touch on that? I went offline for a while.
I did.
Okay.
Okay, Doug. There are two questions from the yes, those who are joining us live from Facebook. One is that I hope the energy transition framework transcends schools. What it means is that how is it being socialized, or students and schools engage on this? Would it be part of their curriculum? How are we getting the young people as part of this? The second one from Bushmeat Crisis Foundation, it says that what is the plan for the ordinary Ghanaian who relies on fuel wood as a livelihood? Are there any plans, sensitization, intensifying communication to them at the local level and empowering them as well? So these are the two comments and questions that have come from the live audience. There's another one too, that it seems that the district assemblies and who are part of the day-to-day planning, some are not even aware of this framework. How can we get them at the local level to also be active in this? Yes, Doug.
All right. So for the schools, as I was at the cross-cutting policies. So I said this will be incorporated in the curricula of our institutions, and we started doing that in collaboration with TVET, where we have introduced a curriculum for solar training, where the TVET students they complete with hands-on practical training for solar. We did it for 10 pilots schools, and it's still ongoing, where the first batch of the students have completed with hands-on solar training, where they can later go ahead to write the Energy Commission exams, and they can even become professional installers and maintaining solar facilities. So these are some of the initiatives in terms of collaborating with schools. And even when we were doing the stakeholder engagement, a lot of academia institutions were included. Every region that we went, we invited the academia and then the technical universities to participate. For those who are on livelihood of wood, the issue is that the system is changing and people will start using gas. So the market will not even be there for you to even be able to supply the fuel wood. So naturally, that business is not going to be as vibrant as it is now. It is going to die off, and then the only place which will be there will be the sustainable woodlots area. I mean, where the fuel wood will be used for charcoal or to use directly for cooking or for smoking and all that, but it's going to minimize drastically. So the market will just go down. So it is time that such industry will be looking at an innovative solution or an innovative way to switch into other businesses. The district assemblies were involved as when we were doing our energy transition. It is one of the documents which are the highest stakeholder engagement, and all of them were involved. So, and this document is available on our website for download. When I finished my presentation, I showed the QR code where people could just scan and download the energy transition document. So it is nationwide and it is available.
Okay, Doug, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
We have asked that you leave your WhatsApp contacts, especially all participants, so that we forward to you materials related to this information. And then also we are putting up a forum online where it will be interactive on energy transition and climate action. We will be picking in comments and questions. And we also want to be having series of this information session regularly. So within the period, whatever comment questions that come, we can put them together and then let you have it so that you can prepare adequately to answer specific questions here and there. There are a couple of also other stakeholders who have showed interest to support one way or the other: communication, content creation, and engagement, and others. And we'll be collating their engagement, their plans and their resources, and then we'll also formally share with the ministry so that we can have a comprehensive support that is well coordinated from CSO's media, especially to help us mainstream our activities alongside this climate transition, energy transition and climate action. So those are my comments now. I don't know, Jonathan, you have something to say as way of closing comment, because this is being joint done with Kasa initiative. So Jonathan, if you have any closing comments, we can add up, because we want to stick to our time, and we promise that by 12 o'clock we'll be closing. So yes, we want to do that.
All right, so I just want to appreciate Doc for his time and detailed information he has revealed regarding this energy transition plan. But as you have already said, this may not be a one-off event. We need to keep engaging in order to abreast ourselves with the direction this document is taking us. It is important for us to start aligning our activities to what is in this plan so that we are all contributing to this national development agenda. All that we are talking about is emission reduction. So whatever route or form it takes for us to cut our emissions as a country in order to meet our national emission reduction target, it's welcome. But I think the approaches as stated in this document is very important in order to guide us in how we formulate our activities when we are implementing our various projects as CSOs or non-government actors. So, Doc, we thank you so much. And if we have any, as Che already said, a number of activities are in place to further drill down into the specifics. The issue of how ordinary people in our communities who dwell totally on, for example, mangrove as their form of fuel, how are some of these people captured into this discussion? Those are some of the critical questions. We want that connection between the national level effort and community level actions to be in sync. If the district assemblies are missing out of this, how do we create the linkage through the district assembly to the communities? So we need to, engage further to strengthen some of these linkages in order to make this framework a reality. Doc, thanks so much for your time.
To take a picture of the participants. So if you can put your cameras on so that we would be able to capture your picture. Yes, just put your, yes, good. So we need all of you to put your cameras on so that we can take some picture. And okay, good.
I think I've done mine already.
Okay, thank you very much. And whilst we ending, we also want to be encouraging the energy transition. We have ended, but I'm going to still play as of one of the institutions.
There is a global call for us to be sensitive to the climate and save the planet for the future generation. And all of us have been advocating for us to align, government, civil society, citizens to align. In our context, what we're trying to do is to go beyond the talk and also try to experiment the technologies that are available to enable the average Ghanaian or citizen of Africa to transition. So in our office here, we're trying to go 100% renewable. So we have over 100 panels on our roof, averaging about 80 kilowatts of energy. We're hoping to increase that to 100 kilowatts in the next couple of months, and also store as much power as we can through the panels to be able to smoothen our demand. On electrification also, we have a couple of electric cars that we're trying to experiment how it works. So we're able to talk about the technology from an experience point of view, and not just the theoretical presentations that we see online or in the news. So we have EVs in our office that we are experimenting and using, assessing how it works, how it adapts to our context, and also challenge industry, particularly those who are thriving in our space. There are a few companies that are assembling electric cars. So we can share from policy angle what the challenges are and what improvements are required to make them even better than the internal combustion engines that we are used to in our context. So that is what we are doing, trying to be part of the solution and being as practical as possible so we can exhibit the solutions that are available for us to change our attitude and actions to save the climate for the next generation.
My name is Enoch Dengri. I work for Legal Resources Center. We are part of the global conversation on climate action and energy transition. I encourage everyone to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
My name is Jonathan Goka, and I am the coordinator for Kasa Initiative Ghana, the convener for CSOs working in the SDG 13 platform space in Ghana. Issues of energy and the future of the energy connected to climate change is very important for our work. We believe that it will be a critical point in our scheme of work in the future. So I'm using this opportunity to invite all members and stakeholders to join online and contribute to the discussions.
Institute for Energy Security encourages the youth to take keen interest in issues concerning the environment.
Adam Yakubu is my name. Policy, Programs and Projects Coordinator at the Institute for Energy Security. Today I come to you as a young person to inform you that you need to have interest in the environment. I will begin this with a quote: "When the last tree dies, the last man dies." What does this mean for you? You should think about this critically, because issues of environment, issues of climate change, issues of global warming, floods affects you. It might not affect you directly, but it affects your brother elsewhere. It affects your sister elsewhere. So you should take concern and you should be interested in how your future is being determined. The future belongs to the youth, and the youth.
My name is Bright Elikem Agbagba. I work with the Africa Disability Institute, formerly Voice Ghana. I am in charge of monitoring and evaluation. Africa Disability Institute is a disability rights advocacy and research institute that champions the rights of people with disabilities in Ghana and across Africa. So I want to say that the rights of people with disabilities must be prioritized in the energy transition and climate change policy process, because these are the most affected people in our country. Therefore, I want to say that their rights must be prioritized. Thank you.
We continue the discussion on energy transition and climate action. We still invite you to be part of the discussion. You can join online and virtually, and we would encourage you to send in your input, your comments, your recommendations, so that we are all part of the discussion, conversation, and dialogue on energy transition and climate action. Thank you, and be part of this conversation.